Imagine you are Becca, and you live in Owl somewhere in the Oltau area in the 1860s. There is endless steppe around you, your parents graze sheep and horses. Your life is governed by a clear rhythm. In winter, the family take refuge in Khstau, in protected valleys. In summer, the whole herd rises to Jailau. In your world, everyone knows where the boundaries of the pastures are and how to negotiate with neighboring villages about watering. But soon everything will change.
Becca had a well-established lifestyle. The 1,500-kilometer-long nomadic roads were laid out by the grandfathers. In winter, the family took refuge in Qstau, Sararqa. In spring, they went to Kokteu, to the north. In summer, they grazed herd in Jailau, near Kukshidau. And in autumn, they returned to Kuzdeu. The key resource is water. Each well was guarded by an Aksakal, was of his kind. Becca knew from childhood, this well is Arghan, that one is Naiman. The watering took turns, first the older ones, then the younger ones. If a dispute arose, but it be settled in accordance to adapt the customary law of nomads. However, in 1868, everything changed. The Russian Empire adopted a temporary regulation of governments in steppe regions, declaring the steppe state property.
The steppe was divided into 6 areas within 3 governorates: Akhmala and Semipalatinsk, Western Siberian, Ural and Turgai, Orenburg, Semirechye and Sardarya, Turkestan, and administrative borders were introduced.
Now these lands belong to the state. We allow you to use them temporarily and communally.
Imperial authority and some researchers often claim that their policy were aimed at a rational and more productive use of land.
Result. This often led to the destruction of traditional, environmentally adapted nomadic systems. Nomads had their own centuries-old methods of rationalization: seasonal migration, pasture rotation, and stock preservation in years of poor harvest, which the imperial administration did not understand or ignore.
Border was only the beginning of change. Just 9 years after the interpretation of the temporary regulation in 1868, the steppe followed with native settlers present from Russian central provinces. They found the best lands, vertical valleys, and farm winters crops where Beck's family on the kept their heirs.
In practice, the domain process was the expropriator forced land. Of pastures existed the best laws, winter pastures squatted for agriculture. After the Missouri, the nomads were left with much less land. They had to move to less vertical areas, which causes a decline in livestock, farming, and widespread famine. This can be seen as a typical example of colonial land seizure.
But the most difficult time for Becca began when 2 legal wars collided on the steppe. On one side was the Edet, the law of his ancestors. According to the Edet, pastures were not private property, but the right of use.
We have wintered here for 100 years. Our grandfathers are buried here.
On the other side was the imperial law with its paperwork and deeds of ownership. A settler could come to the same well and present a certificate. Here is my deed of ownership, signed by the government.
Legal pluralism is a situation when 2 or more legal systems operate in the same territory. In the context of nomads, there was a clash between traditional laws, adat, and imperial law.
Traditional law is a set of customs that have been passed down through generations. Land was a shared resource rather than private property, and its use was governed by cycles of migration. Imperial law. Laws introduced by the administration divided land into public or private property.
And when disputes arose who was right, the imperial administration always chose its own law. A document with a seal defeated centuries-old tradition. The bee who had previously resolved conflicts justly now was powerless against the lowest official.
Based on conducted research, it becomes evident that the land question of Kaiser Steppe in the late 90s of early 20s was really not just a transformation, but was aimed to completely change the nomadic lifestyle.
Analysis of primary sources from the 1868 temporary regulation to the 1905 Kharkala petition shows that imperial policy deliberately dismantled the millennial-old system of ecological adaptation developed by the nomads.